Hi there, I'm Lance and I'm a gamer.
I'm Sam, and I'm a non-gamer.
We are Love to Hate, where we help gamers find great games to play with non-gamers.
And today we're taking a look at Fromage by Road to Infamy.
Fromage is a game about making cheese, and in this particular game, you are going to be playing 4 different mini games on a board that spins. And you'll be playing the mini game that's right there in front of you using your 3 workers. And depending on where you place your workers on the mini game that you're playing on or the resource that's available to you, it might determine that you don't get that worker back until 1, 2, or even 3 turns later. So plan your turns wisely, because that worker that you got just a second ago, you might not get them again until 3 turns later. This is a game in which you're going to have to think several turns ahead, but there's lots of ways to score points in this one. Let's go down to the table where I'll show you how this one works, and then we'll come back and share thoughts on it as a gamer and non-gamer. All right, I have Fromage on the table. Let me show you all this worker placement game about making cheese. Now, for components, there's quite a bit of components in this game, and they're very detailed, so I'm going to spend a little bit extra time talking about the components than I normally would. The first thing is this giant board right here, and it's so big I can't get it all on frame here. I'm only going to be showing you one wedge of the board at a time. As you can see, there are 4 wedges that make up this board, and these wedges are going to be pieced together like a puzzle. They're going to have different parts that stick out, and on the underside of this board is going to be spots for the other piece to stick into, so like a puzzle. And as you can see, there's cards that slide into these boards that are going to be dependent on the player count here, and these cards are double-sided, and so you get some replayability with that. You're sliding into these spots are the different spots for your workers to go. These boards are dual recessed, and so you get to see the card underneath and the spot that you'll be sticking your workers. And we'll explain what all this means here in just a minute, but each board also is a different type of mini game. There are going to be 4 different mini games that you'll be playing. This is just one of them, and whatever one is in front of you is the one that you'll be playing for that particular turn. So the fromagerie here is what I'm playing because it's right in front of me, whereas this player over here is playing this mini game, and this player over here is playing this one, and the one across from me is obviously playing the one in front of them. There's also this resource board that is going to be spinning around with the board as well, but as part of setup, you can spin this and orient it in whatever manner you want. These are going to be the 4 different resources in the game, and so if I have it like this, well, the fromagerie is just going to happen to have the card resource connected to it. But if I had spun this a different way, maybe it was the berries. Speaking of the different resources, let's cover that real quick. You do have those 4 resources here. I do want to point out this is a pre-production copy, what I have, so the retail version as well as the Kickstarter version might look a little bit different, but they all function the same. These berries are going to be a resource that will work for making some of these cheeses that require berries to be in them. The structure resources are going to be important with your player boards. We'll cover that here in just a minute. The cow resources are going to give you milk that you can use to make extra cheese on your turn. And then the cards are going to be different types of cheeses. These are real cheeses that are going to be different types of cheese. So this is a blue cheese right here. This is a soft cheese, and this is another blue cheese, but it's a silver one, as this one's just a gold one. This one needs to age 2 months, whereas this one ages 3 months, and we'll explain what that means here in just a second. But anyhow, these are different types of cheeses that you could make and cash in for extra points. So, some other resources that you have. Each player is going to have their own player board, and the player boards are going to differ in the different structures that could be built. I mentioned that there are structure resources, and you'll be putting these on these little facade spots right here. And as you can see, different structures require different numbers of structure pieces on them. But once you've filled one all the way up, you get this structure built, which is something that you can utilize, such as building a garden shed, and placing a worker here gets you an extra berry every turn. Whereas if you had this board, you would only need to place one structure, and then you would have the tool shed built, and you could place a worker here on your turn and get another structure to use to build some of your other ones. Now, the last structure is always going to be something that gives you extra points at the end of the game, depending on a different type of action that maybe you've done throughout the course of the game. So this is going to lean into a certain strategy that you might want to lean into to get extra points at the end of the game. And as far as the rest of the resources go, each player is going to have their own starting set of cheese pieces and their player color. This is the blue player, as well as 3 workers that they can use. You've got your white cheese, your blue cheese, and your golden cheddar cheese, I suppose. But anyhow, these workers all function exactly the same. The reasons why they're different colors are going to be the different colored spaces on the board. You have to place a worker in the matching color that you are placing on top of. Now, in addition to all that I've shown you so far, there are going to be extra tiles that you can place on your board. This is the advanced part of the game, and these are just extra structures that you could play with instead of the structures that are on your board, and they do have the explanation for what each of them do as I drop them all here. But anyhow, that's something that you can play with once you've mastered the game, and it adds a ton of replayability. There are 32 of these, actually, to be exact. So let's cover what you'll be doing in this game. So in the game, you will be playing, like I said, 4 different mini games, and they're the wedges of this big board, and you'll be playing the one that's in front of you. Now, this board is going to spin to the left clockwise, and so each turn you'll be playing a new mini game in front of you. This Fromagerie is going to be a game in which you are trying to get your colored cheese pieces on as many different tables as you can to increase the number of points that you're getting. If you're only on 2 different tables, you're only going to get 2 points. So in this case, I'm only getting 2 points. But if I had gotten onto a 3rd table, I would have gotten 5. All the way up to getting on all 6 tables, I would then get 20 points, as you can see. Now, in addition to the points over here, you will be getting bonuses for having placed on the table. The ones over here on this side of the board, they're going to give you immediate bonuses. So this placing on this table right here is going to have you be able to trade in one of your resources for any other type of resource. So basically trading one in for another. Whereas placing on this table right here just gives you a free resource, and placing on this table right here gives you 2 different resources. And so these are immediate. Now, these tables over here, they're going to give you extra points at the end of the game. So that's what you're doing here in the Fromagerie. We'll rotate to the left here and show you the villas. And so, or I don't know French very well, guys. So if I get these words wrong, sorry, but we're going to say this is the villas. And so what you're doing here, this is area control. And so it's same idea, placing one of your cheese pieces into one of these spots gets you presence in the different districts. Now, placing on one of these golden spots right here is going to get you presence in 3 different regions, whereas placing on one of these silver spots is going to get you presence in only 2 regions, and then placing on one of these bronze spots is only going to get you presence in 1 region. Now, at the end of the game, you'll count up who has the most presence in each region, and whoever does will earn the token that is in that region. And these are set out here at random, and so this will change every time you play the game, but these ones that have 3 people on them are the most, giving 9 points, whereas the ones that only have 1 person on them are only going to award 7 points. Now, if people tie, you would actually flip the token over to show the equal sign, and that token's only going to be worth 3 points for all the players who tied in the presence of that particular region. So that's how you play the villas. Again, I'm probably getting that word wrong. The festival region right here is going to be where you're trying to snake together different tables of your color. And so, for instance, let's say I start right here, and then on a future turn, maybe I go right here, and then on a future turn, I can go right here. Now, I don't have to connect them, but I am inclined to connect them because however many adjacent that I have, increasing number of points for the increasing number of adjacency. And these spots right here that have the French flag on them, those are adjacent to any of the 4 that are next to it. So this is adjacent to this, and this is adjacent to that, and that is adjacent to that. And so my chain is 4 long right here. Now, if I place right here, my chain then grows 2 more. So my chain is 6 long because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so that's pretty cool. Now you can have multiple chains, by the way. So for instance, let's say I had that, and let's say that I had this. Well, now I've got a chain of 5, actually, because I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a chain of 4, because I could go 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I could actually go 5 here as well, so 5 there as well. And so I would have 2 chains of 5 for 9 points apiece. That's how the festival is going to work. Now, rotating to the left again one more time, we are brought to the bistro, the last and final mini game. And at the bistro, you are wanting to have your presence on the 2 plates of a table as often as possible. So if I can fill up both of these plates right here, then I have at least 1 pairing, so I'm not on this scoring regimen. I'm on this scoring regimen because I do have 1 table where I've gotten all the presents on. If I can make another table where I've got the 2 different plates, well, now I drop down to this scoring regimen. And then obviously, if I could do it again, I would drop down to this scoring regimen. But wherever I end up at the end of the game, that's how many points I'm getting for the different colors of plates for the different types of cheeses that I've made. So in this case, if I've got 2 tables where I've got both of the plates, then I'm working off this scoring regimen where I'm getting 2 points for every red plate, 4 for every silver plate, and 6 for every gold. And as you can see, I've got 2 gold, 1 silver, and 1 red plate, and that would be the points that I would get in this specific region. So those are the different mini games, but let me explain to you how a turn is going to work. You're going to be using a piece of your cheese along with one of your 3 workers to be able to place that cheese onto the spot where you're wanting to go. So if I'm working on the bistro here, I've got to work with this, and let's say that I do want to go right here. Well, it's a yellow piece of cheese, and so I would need my yellow worker. I would take my yellow piece, or my piece of cheese, placing it in that spot along with my yellow worker on top of it, like so. Now, I can only use 1 worker in this area, but I can also use another worker up here at the resources. And as you can see, we're working with cows on the bistro board in this particular game. And I would just use any one of my workers that I want to, placing them either on the 1, 2, or 3 spot, and I would gain that number of resources. So maybe I want 2 cows, and so I would place my worker there, and I would instantly gain 2 cows. Now, here's the catch with this game. These workers that I've placed out here, they're going to come back to me in different intervals depending on the direction in which I've placed them. Placing a worker that is facing to the right is going to come back to you on the very next turn. Each turning of the board, each round of the board is 1 month. And so in 1 month's passing, as I turn this over, you can see that this worker is now facing towards me as I work on the fromagerie, and that worker is actually going to come back to me to be able to use on this turn. But the worker that I placed on this 2 spot, it takes 2 months for that worker to come back, so 2 turns. And as you can see, that worker is now facing to the right, and they won't come back to me until we rotate this again 1 more time, at which point they will be facing me, and they'll come back to me at that point. And as you might imagine, placing a worker on a 3 is going to take 3 turns or 3 months before that worker comes back to you. And as you can see here on the fromagerie board, these tables up here that award the nicer rewards, those are going to require you to spend workers that are going to take longer before they get back to you so that you can use them again. You really don't want to start a turn with no workers, because if you have no workers, you won't be able to do anything. And likewise, you really don't want to start a turn with all 3 workers, because at most you can only use 2. So this is a game of trying to use your workers efficiently to where you'll at least have 1, if not 2 workers to use on every turn, but you don't want to have none and you don't want to have 3. And each time you're placing a worker down here, you're using one of your pieces of cheese to do so with it. And if you run out of cheese, that is one of the ways that the game is going to come to an end. Now, I do want to point out these spots here that have the fruit on them. That's going to require you to have fruit on your board, the fruit resources. And when you get a fruit resource, it's going to go right here on your board. And then when you've placed a worker with a piece of your cheese on one of these spots that either shows the berry or the jar of jam, you will then move one of your berries on your board either to the board that has the berry on it or the board that has the jam on it, depending on which one you're placing on. What you're wanting to do right here is you're wanting to beef both of these up as much as you can, because you'll get points at the end of the game for however many berries you have on this, multiplied by however many berries you have on that. So you want to beef these up equally if possible. That's how the berries are going to work for you. Let's talk about the cows. You've got the cows right here. Now you're going to keep cows right here on this spot of your player board, and you can spend 2 cows, placing them on this cottage right here, to be able to make any one of these types of cheeses. So a blue cheese on a red plate, or facing to the right is another way to think of it. And here's one right here, a blue cheese facing to the right. I would just automatically get to place one of my pieces of cheese in that spot without having to spend a worker if I were to do this. And each of these are going to work exactly the same, just knowing that the last stable is going to cost you 5 cows, and it lets you basically make any type of cheese you want in the game. The last, excuse me, not the last, but the second to last resource is going to be those structure pieces, and I've already explained that. That's letting you kind of gain access to these spots right here. The card resources, you're going to keep your stack of cards right here, and again, when you make a specific type of cheese, look, there's that blue cheese facing to the right on a red plate again. When I make that cheese, no matter how I make it in the game, I can turn this card over, show it to the other players, and count it for victory points at the end of the game for however many that I complete, increasing number of points. That's really nice, a nice way to get points in the game. So that's pretty much the gist of the game. The game will continue again until someone runs out of their pieces, and this is simultaneous. And so I'm playing on the Fromagerie, and this player right here is playing on the Bistro, and this one over here is playing on the Villas. We're all doing this at the same time. So when this board comes back around to me, obviously it's going to have some of their cheese pieces on it, and so that's going to mess with my plans. So I really have to be watching what they're doing throughout the course of the game to do well in this game, trying to get my cheeses where I need them to be. But that's the gist of the game. You'll count up all your points, getting points from the different mini games, as well as the points that you've awarded to yourself through the cards, the berries, this spot right here if you've unlocked it. And yeah, that's where you're going to get a lot of your points in the game. Whoever has the most points is going to be the winner, and that's how you play Fromage. Let's go back up top and share our thoughts on this one. And we're back, and now we're going to share our thoughts on Fromage from a gamer and non-gamer's perspective. So real quick, before we get too far into this video, I do want to point out that I already did a video on this game when it was running on crowdfunding way back when this game was not out yet. And so if you want to check out that video and check my initial thoughts on having played one game of it at that time, you can click the eye in the top right corner and it will show you that particular video. But now, having played this game several times, I can give a much more detailed review of what I think of it, and as well as Sam's opinion. So, Sam, this is probably, I'm going to guess, a game that you would say is right there at the verge of too deep, too heavy, too complex for most non-gamers, and maybe even beyond that. I'm just guessing. Am I right on that?
I just think it's a lot to keep in your head. There's a lot going on, and essentially you're playing 4 different games with Cherry Game, and I just think for a non-gamer, this would be a lot to pull out on the table. I
would agree with that. And that was something that I kind of knew that going into this, bringing it to the table with you and 2 other non-gamers, that this would maybe be a little bit of a tough sell, being since it is like playing 4 games, and there are rules to explaining each of the 4 different mini games.
Yeah.
In addition to everything else that's going on with the game, the resources, your own personal board, and that sort of thing. So the cards, and yeah, there is a lot going on with this one. But let's talk about what your experience was like with that, and then I'll share a little bit of what my experience is with this game.
I mean, as Lance was explaining it to us, it reminded me of a game that we played this summer. Nothing alike, except for the fact that it's games within games.
Lots of mini games.
Yeah, it was dice and cards, which is kind of a party type
game.
But it took me so long to figure out that game, and I felt like it was going to be the same as this, and it wasn't. This one didn't take me as long because they do a good job of the iconography is pretty good. It's clear what you're trying to do with each section, but I don't know if I like the 4 different games.
Trying to balance 4 different plates kind of thing. Yeah.
And Lance loves that.
I love that with this game. Like trying, and I think the thing about it for me that works so well with this one is that elegance of the design of the workers and the timing with that.
Yes.
That I really have to be wise about when do I use this worker that's gonna get me the great nice cheese that I need, that's in the perfect spot that I need it to be, but it costs 3 turns. Like that's such a weighty decision, and you make it over and over and over again in this game, and I just love that aspect of it. Whereas that for you is maybe a little bit
Well,
too
I
taxing.
like to have one main goal, and having to switch it
Sure.
and just I definitely felt like there were some that I was like, well, I'm better at this one. I'm just gonna kind of I don't know. It just wasn't.
No, and I get that.
Yeah.
I get that because it's very taxing to have to do that over and over again. But then not only that, but you're doing it for this game. You're doing it for that game. You're doing
But
it for that game.
essentially learning how to play 4 games.
Yes.
I don't like learning how to play one game.
And even beyond that, how to do well in
Yes.
4 games,
Yeah.
right? Because you do well at the expense of doing well at the other. So it's this.
And
this
it just, I think I just
balancing act.
constantly felt like I didn't know how I was doing throughout the whole thing.
Well, another thing about the game that I really enjoy is the player interaction with this.
Yeah.
There is such high player interaction. If you're somebody who really enjoys player interaction without the cost of like take that or gotcha kind of aspects with gaming, you get that with this one because you're playing the same games. There's area control on one. There's trying to connect your tables together. There's trying to have your be on separate tables as much as you can, right? Like there's different aspects.
Horrible.
No, sounds so good to me. But the thing is the player interaction is each player's doing the same thing, and they're doing it at different intervals. And when it comes back around to you, you see what everybody's done, and it jacks with your plans. And so now you got to jack with their plans, and you do that by playing your cheese out. But again, being very mindful of, do you use that worker that you won't get back 3 turns from?
Yeah, biggest discrepancy.
Oh man,
numbers.
It probably is. It probably is. Okay, so let's get to pros and cons. And yes, these are thoughts from the non-gamer. That's what this section is titled. So Sam's going to have some thoughts. I'm going to throw my thoughts in there too, though. So Sam, what are the bullet point highlights, the pros? Let's start with the pros for this game.
I mean, the mechanics are great.
Okay.
I do agree with that. And the timing of it and how that works is all fantastic. It's a pretty game. It's an interesting concept for sure.
Okay.
So mechanically and everything, it's a great game, and I can definitely see how Lance likes it.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the artwork because that's not something that we've said in this video just yet. I think this is one of the most beautiful games of the year, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And it's a unique, different take of artwork. It's from Pavel, and I'm going to mispronounce the last name, Zahovba. Fantastic job with the artwork on this. I mean, look at the front of the box. It's beautiful. It's all these different cheeses, and it just looks great. So yeah. Couple other things I would be remiss if I didn't throw it out there. This game is only 40 minutes long, and it feels like a I shouldn't say brain burner because I never felt like my brain was on fire, but I could see somebody saying that, but it feels like a longer game. No, I'm saying it
did feel longer.
It feels crunchier than a 40-minute game would feel, if that makes sense. In a good way, longer in a good way. I hope that's coming across as a pro. But it is 40 minutes. It's not 3 hours long. It's not 2 hours. So it's not even an hour. So yeah, that's a pro for me.
Okay, great.
Any other pros? Any other things that stick out to you? Okay, fine then. Gosh, what are some of the cons?
I cannot love a game without there being a ton of cons. It's just there's a lot going on.
Sure.
There's a lot of different games. I don't like the mini game idea. I want the game.
Okay.
And I just felt like I couldn't focus enough on each one to do well.
Yeah. And I'm gonna guess that this would maybe be a con for you. And I think it's a pro for the game. It is simultaneous gameplay in the sense that everybody's doing their mini games at the same time. And that can be a con for some non-gamers, and that maybe you want to ask a question, or maybe you want to see how things are playing
you
out.
don't really, no one's paying attention to you to know if you're doing it wrong.
That's
or
another
cheating.
aspect too, right? But then also, even on beyond that, even if you fully understand the game and you know how it all works, and you're not worried about making mistakes and cheating, there is still that aspect of, I want to see what you're doing over there without me having to worry about what I'm doing here. And you don't get that. You have to be playing this at the same time. And so there is that bit of an aspect of like, I better keep
at the same time, like they're playing different games than you. So it's not like,
Sure. I'm just talking about in the sense of that feeling of, I got to keep up with the rest of the pace of the other group. That could happen, I guess, with this game. So
is it a con that we're playing a cheese game and you just found out you're lactose intolerant?
I found out I'm lactose intolerant.
Does that have any effect on you?
It makes me unhappy about life. All right, let's get to our scores for this one. And you heard Sam say this might be one of the biggest discrepancies we've ever had here on Love to Hate, because I
feel like we had a big one last year too. I feel like maybe it's like once a year that there's just one that it's just different. It's not a bad game at all.
Okay.
It's not one that I'm rating.
You're just not over the moon about it like I am.
Yes.
Okay.
I fair enough. Play it again too.
Yeah. Well, let's start with you first. Okay. Where did you come out? Scale of 1 to 10 on this one.
I give it a 7.1.
7.1.
It's fine. I would play it again.
7.1. Oh my goodness, guys. I love this game. This is right there in the running for Game of the Year for me, for 2024. And here's the thing. I will fully admit that maybe this is not a fantastic game for non-gamers. This is a fantastic game for those people who have played games that wouldn't say that they're a straight up noob, like never played games before.
You know the name of our channel is Love to Hate, right?
Yes, I know that, but it feels so right when playing this with someone who's maybe right there getting into the hobby and exploring these kind of games, or someone that's, a full-fledged member of the hobby. Like, this is a great game for that crowd. Maybe somebody who's used to playing classic kind of big store kind of games or card games, maybe this is a bit too much for them. But if you're beyond that, even just by a little bit, I think this could be a great game.
What's your score?
I'm a 9 on this one. I love Fromage. This is one of my favorite games of the year. And you're going to see it in the top 10 video at the end of the year. It's at least top 3. It's at least top 3 for me for 2024. I love this game. It's just fantastic to me. So there you have it, guys. We don't agree on everything here on this channel, but if you watch this video, you know why I like this one. So the game is Fromage. It is from Road to Infamy. Leave us some comments down below. Let us know what you think about this particular cheese-making game.
And how you feel about it if you're lactose intolerant. Make sure to like and subscribe and push that bell button so you get notifications of all our new content.
I'm Lance.
I'm Sam.
And we are Love to Hate, where we bridge the gap between gamers and non-gamers. We'll catch you next time.